When working with the Origin of Energy online program, the movement component is very simple. If you just get the 9 key lifts done every week and track those and record them, you're going to improve. Now the key lifts are the overhead pull, overhead push, horizontal pull, horizontal push, bent over row or high pull, and dip. So that's for the upper body. For the legs, it's the lunging, squatting, and bending. Now all of these can be done in one session if you're really limited on time, and then throughout each day you could just work on the mobility side of it or just grease the groove and do a couple of reps. But I do recommend taking them all to fatigue once a week to get that super compensation and get that development. So for me, I like just dead hanging every day, so that's helping my overhead position develop. So I like just tractioning out, so you might do this with the feet on the ground, just doing that through the day, or doing it as a full straight dead hang where you've got the ring set up high enough or a bar that's set up high enough, and just conditioning those shoulders to be able to accept that position. And then from there you can do just basic pull-ups, feet on the ground. You can go to heavier pull-ups, and there's all the different variations of doing that, whether you're doing eccentrics, whether you're working on higher reps, lower reps, loaded weight shifts, all the different variations of pull-ups. But you want to work it intensely once a week and then work on it for mobility every day, so that way you get a better handstand line, you open up your shoulders and you avoid that position. The same goes for the overhead press. Now I like just using the bands or body weight or dumbbells for overhead pushing, but just as a mob every day, the down dog position is awesome. So just working those shoulders open, hinging through the hip, doubling up on that hip mobility for the bend pattern. So you may have to do it like that, but really opening up the shoulders, shrugging away, pulling the ribs in, and just doing that every day will help open up that position. As a press, you may want to do the body weight version where your head's going forward, so you're in that similar position to that, loading up, and the elbows come in, go forward, and then push up. And just greasing the groove by doing that each day, a couple of reps. And then overloading it 1 week with your choice of reps. I find that doing those 9 lifts, I like doing a mixture of different reps for each lift. So in a workout I might do some heavy pull-ups and moderate range, and then finish with some higher rep pull-ups. Same goes for the press, same goes for the horizontal, for all of the different lifts. But if you're pushed for time, you might find that you just do your overhead pulling and pushing, low reps for example, and then horizontal moderate reps, and then your high reps, bent row or high pull or whatever, and dips. It's really up to you how you put it together. You are going to get a crossover because you're still using the same muscles anyway, but it's just good to keep all the different fiber responses alive in the body. For the overhead press, just using the band is quite nice. Just hitting some of those. I love the overhead press because works on that handstand line and working on that nice strict alignment. Now you may not have the best shoulder mobility, but the best thing for that is the dead hanging. So working on your pull-ups and really coming from that deep dead hang position will help improve that. For horizontal pulling, you can do the bent row with dumbbells or the band, and just get that nice position where you hinge forward and getting that with dumbbells. You can load it up a bit. I like the ring horizontal pull and the horizontal hang, just using my body weight to mob the back out, really traction right out, open up the rhomboids, and then getting those pull patterns there to get that nice activation, doing hollow arches there to really mobilize the thoracic. Single arm pulls are also very good. Now the push-up position is a great way to not only strengthen the chest, shoulders, and the horizontal push pattern, but also to stretch it. So when you're coming down, really opening up that chest. My chest is just off the floor. Really feel that retraction, and as I push through, that protraction. So you can do that with a single arm with the band, or with a dumbbell version on a bar or a bench, I find a push-up is great, and then just doing that in the rings as well is a great way to get that nice deep stretch through the chest. You do the similar thing in the dip, but just getting that nice stretch position there is quite nice. And the extension of that would be the back lever stretch. So you're really opening up the chest, and then you've got those arms behind you, but it's a great way to move that position. And just open that up. It can be quite simple, just doing that through the week, just on different days, but then also just hitting those push-ups through a full range of motion once a week, really quite heavy, will really allow that chest to stretch out, open up, and have that nice alignment, because you want to maintain that strength through that full range. That's what really gives you that mobility. For the high pull, you can go inverted in the rings and just work on the dead hand. From there, just stretch out the traps. It's quite nice. Just a traction out, stretch out. It's pretty cool. Using dumbbells or the band to stretch as well is quite good. So one side or both sides. So if you just do it on it like that, so you've got a dumbbell, just stretching that out. Great way to stretch and strengthen. And doing those high pulls. Inverted in the rings is pretty heavy, so unless you're really conditioned with dumbbells or the bands, it's better off to just hit that. I like that position. Or for a lot of people, that's a bit too much in the traps and they don't want more tension there. So they integrate maybe a 45-degree angle and work that. The opposite of that is going to be the dip. So just using that bottom of the dip position as a stretch. It's really good just hitting that each day to open up the chest and shoulders. Much like that push-up position. And then, just doing reps, greasing the groove with the feet on the ground is quite cool. Just to feel that nice alignment. Whether you've got dip bars or whether you're parallettes or the rings or two chairs, just hitting those. And then obviously making them full body weight as well. I find that if you're going to do stuff every day, you do it sub-max, so you're just kind of going through the motions, activating the tissues, and just getting a nice general feel of the movement to improve it. So you're ingraining good habits into the nervous system. And then once a week, doing those multiple sets, so 3 to 5 sets, or doing, maybe I usually 4 sets of ring dips and then 4 sets of bar dips. I might do some weighted ones, some heavier ones, and just mix it up like that. Doing that once a week to get that progressive overload and tissue adaptation, I find is really effective, but I don't need more than that, especially if I'm doing push-ups on another day and doing overhead press on another day. And if you were pushed for time, you could just put them all together into one workout, just do 3 sets of each, and that way it's very effective, and you're going to get that progressive overload to make your body stronger. You do want to keep track of all your lifts so that way you actually know that you're going in the right direction. And that's why it's nice in a session to do low reps, high reps, and moderate reps, and keep track of those, because if you spend too long just doing high reps, you kind of lose track of where you're at with that particular lift, and you decondition it a little bit. You will get the carryover from doing pushing. So even if you were just doing low reps on dips, moderate here and then high reps here, you're still going to get a carryover of those low reps in the dip action to that overhead action. Now, if we're looking at the leg movements, squatting is a nice basic pattern. You can put these together in any way that you like. I just like to tick off the 9 lifts. We use overhead pull, push, bend, horizontal pull, push, squat, and high pull or bent row, and dip and lunge in the classes here, and I find that's really effective, just once each a week, and it's over 3 different days with 48 hours rest in between. I usually use, but some people might come 2 days in a row and they'll do it back to back, and that's fine, but you just need to find out how you can get through them all. So the squat position, this deep position, is great, just stretching like that. You can do it with that nice vertical spine and really drive the hips forward, mobilize the ankles, mobilize the hips. It's awesome if you've got ankle issues. You can set up a band at an anchor point and do those ankle moves. If your hips are a bit tight, pushing them out, really working that and getting more comfortable with it. maintaining that arch to strengthen that. It's really a chance to get conscious and improve the health of your tissues, just getting down into that position every day. So if you're just here and that's super tight, just work with that. And then you're doing the rounded out versions like that, because there's no external load, that's fine. When you're loading up with heavy loads, then of course you want to maintain a neutral spine to protect the spine, because it's always better to overload the muscles and the joints. So you never want to overload those joints excessively with too much load, and it's always going to be easier to maintain good structural integrity in the spine if you load it neutral. I do rounded back lifting and stuff like that, but never at my maximum. And here, if you're looking at the squat and all the leg movements, the big joint is the hip joint. So you want to keep the spine stable, but mobilize and strengthen that hip joint and overload that. So the squatting movement is great. You can do single leg versions, and you can do the weight shift versions, all of those just throughout the day, every day, and then just overload them once a week, quite heavy. Then you've got the bend pattern. So just doing these throughout the day, really good. The down dog, like I did before, where you're opening up the shoulders and the hips at the same time, is quite good. And just hinging through that hip, finding where you're tight, and then maintaining that arch, so you really stabilize the lower back and you're mobilizing the hip. Now some people need to work on the calves more, so stretching like that, so that way you get that calf stretch, or with a slant board, and then using that range of motion. So 3 different types of deadlifts. So I like doing more of a squat style sometimes, and then I'll do the bend style that, where I have a hip hinge or a strict hip hinge. So that's sumo, then you might do it with the weights on the outside, or a barbell with your feet close together, or single leg, same deal. So that's a bend like that. Then you've got the more of a hinge like that in between, and then you've got the strict hinge like that. So mixing those up and working, say, a month of each one and then changing it over. But just for your mobility, you might be doing all of them, or just warming up, you might do a mixture, or if you've got time. So usually in a session, I might do one type of deadlift or bend in my gymnastic strength component, and I might do a few different sets of pull-ups or whatever, because I'm going overhead pull, overhead push, bend. So that way I'm hitting some strict straight leg stuff, and then a bit of bent leg bending as well, so that way I can really keep it strong and really lift a bit more weight and have that go through the structure. It's really up to you how you put it together, but you want to get those bends in every week, those squats in every week, and then the split squat, the lunge. So a simple one is just getting that stretch every day, really opening up that hip, opening up the hip flexor, and then doing the one where you're coming down and going from the groin into the front of the hip at the outside, opening that up through the day just to balance out chair time, which is being accumulated more and more by people. So you really want to open up the front of the hip to gap that hip and traction it out. So doing those, and then just doing basic lunges. So the split style squat is great to really mobilize, stretch and strengthen. So I'm getting that ankle mobility, that nice deep position there, opening up that back hip, doing reps like that. I love that one because it's stretching and strengthening. Really simple. And if you get strong down in that position there, then your front split's going to be easy. So I love the 9 lifts because they have so much carryover, and even if you didn't have time to do anything else, you just did those in one session, and then you just kind of touched on them. Each day your body's going to change for the better. You're going to get stronger and healthier. I love all the gymnastic strength and all the other things that are in the program, but if you prioritize these, you're going to get a much better benefit. Now, the only movement that I haven't covered is walking, running and sprinting. Now, walking every day, really important. Just kind of walk to different things that you're going to be doing. I walk to the gym a couple of times a day. I find it's really effective for keeping my body healthy. I go to the park each day. I don't drive. I usually only drive once a week, which I'm very fortunate to not have to drive every day. Some of us have to commute every day. But just getting as much kind of daily activities done through walking and just moving around is so healthy, but doing that with good posture, good alignment. And then once a week, I'll usually do some sprints. Maybe we go to the park and we're just playing, nothing too serious. I just do some hill sprints or just run around a bit with my son just to keep that pattern going. If I've got time, I'll condition it more effectively. Sometimes I'll do it here. I'll just do shuttle sprints up and down the room and just get some sets of those. And then I might get some box jumps or some different plyometric drills like that at least once a week to keep that going in my body and to keep it healthy. But it doesn't need to be too complicated, but you do want to make sure that you keep that in the system, that rhythmic gait pattern, as well as something that's a bit more explosive depending on the level of health in your tissues. But yeah, it's easy. All this stuff is so simple. You don't need to make it too hard. Just keep it in the system, keep it going and be consistent. Some weeks you might get more in, but don't avoid the main key lifts. You're better off just focusing on those and getting those done whenever you're limited on time. And then, you know, the other stuff, if you do it over the top of this, you know, it's more fun, but it's not going to give you the same results as getting these main key lifts done. So I hope that helps. See you next time.